On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we're previewing a top 5 showdown in Allen Fieldhouse between the Kansas Jayhawks and the UConn Huskies.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also like and subscribe to our show on our YouTube page. And thanks to the everydayers tuning into each and every episode. You can check some football content out this week. You can check some basketball content out this week. And we're previewing the Kansas UConn game here on this episode of the show. Top 5 showdown in Allen Fieldhouse. Should be a good one. Let's get right into it. First, this episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So we're going to start with our overview, get to a UConn scouting report, move to our matchups of the game, and finish up with players to watch. So some of the top storylines in this game, obviously this is the last 2 national champions. KU winning it in 2022, Connecticut winning it in 2023. This was nearly a Sweet 16 matchup this past season, but Kansas was unable to finish strong against Arkansas, and then UConn just blasted everybody in the NCAA tournament. But the last 2 national champions going at it, that makes it a very interesting game. It is obviously this year still a top 5 matchup. Like, both teams are still very good right now. Both teams projected to still be very good. Both these teams national title contenders here this year for the 2024 NCAA tournament. And I think to that notion, Kansas is trying to cement themselves as a top 5 team, right? I mean, when you look at what this win would mean for both programs, I guess both teams, for UConn, this would kind of re-cement them as, hey, we are coming to win back-to-back, right? I mean, we've talked about the stats. We talked about them last year when Kansas was trying to win back-to-back, that no team has made it even past the Sweet 16, who was the defending national champions, since that 07 Florida team. So, like, it's really hard to even go to the Elite 8 when you're the defending national champions. There's just so many things that have to go your way. But Kansas still got a 1 seed last year, and UConn has the roster and makings of being a possible 1 seed this year and being one of the best teams in the country. So for UConn, you win this game, all of a sudden that, can they repeat talk gets emphasized even more than it already has been. If Kansas wins this game, maybe it excuses some of your issues that you showed in the Marquette game. Maybe it shows excuses some of the issues you showed in the Eastern Illinois game. And it becomes more of a, this is the top 5 team. Like, there's no doubts about it, right? It kind of washes away your previous sins, so to speak. So from that standpoint, this game does have implications in terms of, the team who wins it is going to be thought of very positively. The team who loses it, unless maybe you get blown out or something, isn't really going to be viewed, I think, in a super negative light. Like, maybe you drop a few spots in the AP poll or something like that, but you're still going to be kind of in contention. That's the beauty of an early game like this. You have a National Player of the Year candidate race matchup, whatever you want to call it in this one. So Zach Edey is the favorite right now, but Hunter Dickinson and Donovan Clingan for UConn are 2 of the other players that are kind of in the running for the award right now. Dickinson's been putting up monster numbers, 21 points. He's averaging a double-double. He's putting up insane efficiency right now from the field. He's getting a couple assists per game, more than a block and steal per game. Then you have Donovan Clingan, who is also insane efficiency, shooting nearly 70% from the floor right now. He can stretch it a little bit. He hasn't really shown that a ton early this season, but he can do it. Good rebounder, really good shot blocker on the interior for them. And these are 2 of the top centers and players in the country going at it against each other. And in the case of Dickinson, he's been more viewed as being like the college center. Clingan has been more viewed as being like and obviously both have had great college production, but more as the pro guy. Like, he could be a top 5 pick. He could be a lottery pick in this next NBA draft. So big opportunity for Hunter Dickinson to, maybe earn some NBA scouts. Probably, I'd imagine, will be in attendance to earn some lore from that standpoint. But also UConn's backup center, Johnson, he is a beast. He has been unbelievable so far for them too, where it is kind of shades for them of last year when they had Clingan coming off the bench for Adama Sanogo, who was the Final Four MOP, and now they have Johnson coming off the bench for Clingan, and those guys are a little less than last year. Like, it's more of just kind of a mixed 50-50 split. But either way, the center position of Kansas versus the center position of UConn is some of the best players in the country. Now, beyond this, the final big storyline I have here, UConn is 7-0 on the season. They have won 24 straight non-conference games. So 7 straight this year, 6 straight in the NCAA tournament. And then before that, they started 11-0 last year before suffering a couple losses in Big East play. Their last non-conference loss, New Mexico State, interestingly enough, in the NCAA tournament. But over the course of their 24 consecutive non-conference wins, all 24 of them have been by double digits. That includes a 10-point win earlier this year against Texas. This team has not just been elite, they have been dominant. They have been unbeatable lately against non-conference opponents. Can you be the team who ends that streak? Can you be the team who, doesn't lose by double digits? Can you be the team who beats them for the first time in a long time in the non-con? As far as the UConn scouting report, they're 7-0 right now, 4th in the AP poll. They are number 3 on KenPom. And I think, no matter where you look, they're kind of one of just the best teams in the country. Right now, they're 6th on offense on KenPom. They are 10th on the defensive side of the basketball. Kind of tempo-wise, they play middle of the pack in the country. So they'll get out in transition if you allow them to do it, and they'll take advantage of that with some really good athletes. Tristan Newton can get out in transition. They've got some good passers, right? But they're not always looking to do it. They're fine slowing it down if you have to do that. So they're kind of amenable to whatever they need to play to at that point in time. They've got a ton of studs. They have 5 players who are averaging 14.5 points per game or more. Now, the big news, Stephon Castle, who is a potential lottery pick and kind of a one-and-done player for them, kind of do-it-all guard. He's putting up 14.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He is not going to play in this game. Dan Hurley said he's progressing in the right way, but he's not going to play against Kansas. So that certainly makes things a little more beneficial to Kansas. But still, there are a lot of studs on this UConn roster. Like, they have, for my money, one of the best starting 5, especially when Castle's there, in college basketball, and have one of the most talented rosters. And so much so that Evan Miyakawa's website has them as the number 2 roster strength in the country. So Donovan Clingan, who we talked about, National Player of the Year candidate, he's actually number 2 on Evan Miyakawa's BPR rating for Player of the Year. He's high up in the betting odds. He's put up 15.6. I'm going 67% from the field right now. Like I said, no Stephon Castle, but they still have good guard play. Tristan Newton is kind of a triple-double guy, like what Kevin McCullar's done early. Newton is averaging 15.5 points, 8.1 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. So he has been one of the best guards in the country, and he was really instrumental in them winning the national title last year. Cam Spencer was a transfer they brought in from Rutgers. He's an elite 3-and-D type. He's actually leading the team in scoring at 16 points per game. He's shooting 48% from 3. Then you have Alex Caravan, who was kind of like this glue guy 4-man last year, who was a knockdown shooter. He shot 40% from 3 as a stretch 4 last year, but can do a little bit of everything too. He's upped his game to 14.6 points per game this year. So really, I guess, glue guy plus, who can shoot it and do a lot of things and could be a possible first-round draft pick. This roster is loaded for Connecticut. Their best individual defenders in terms of when you look at, who KU is going to have to go against. So Clingan at center is probably their best overall defender. He's really good, and that'll make life very difficult for Hunter Dickinson. That becomes a question if Hunter Dickinson has, just an average game as opposed to a takeover game like we've seen in some of these big games for Kansas. Can the other players for KU step up enough to win? Castle's been a really good defender, but obviously they don't have him. Hassan Diarra will probably play more minutes because of that. He's been kind of a bench guard the last couple of years for them, and he's been a really good defender that they bring off the bench. And then Cam Spencer has a great reputation as a defensive kind of guard wing type on the outside. Now, overall things they do well, they do not turn it over. They are an elite offensive rebounding team. They are an elite defensive rebounding team. They're top 10 in both. They get to the free throw line a decent amount. They shoot them at a good enough clip. And they're the number 1 team in the country in 2-point offense. They're top 10 in the country in 2-point defense, in big part because Donovan Clingan, he gets easy baskets on one end and he blocks shots at the other, and then Johnson as well. Things that they struggle at a bit, I guess, at least comparatively to what they do well. They haven't shot threes well so far, 31%, basically 30.9% from 3-point range. But the one thing that kind of gets me there is that they are 90th in the country in the amount of shots they're taking from 3, which tells you, even though they're not shooting them at a high clip right now, they are taking them at a decent amount, which means that they have confidence that they're going to start hitting them. So you got to hope that this isn't the game that things turn for them. Like Caravan is shooting in the low 30%. Well, last year he shot 40% from three. So like there are some guys there that they're probably a better three-point shooting team than the stats might show early on in the season. They have been burned a bit from three on the defensive end early in the season, but they really aren't bad overall at really anything. They're just they're like not as good at other things. Like one thing to their standards, they haven't been great at forcing turnovers, but they're still like nationally above average at it. So those are kind of the things to look at with UConn. So it should be a tough one for KU here. We'll get to our matchups of the game and our players to watch on this episode of LOJ. We're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So you can bet on Kansas moneyline against UConn in this game. It's around even odds right now. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You can get in on some same-game parlays, including the games. You can be like Hunter Dickinson to have 15-plus points and 10-plus rebounds, and Kevin McCullar to have 15-plus points, put it together in a same-game parlay. Boom, you're good to go. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Our matchups of the game for Kansas versus UConn, top 5 showdown. And don't forget, you can check out some other basketball content and football content throughout the week here with us on Locked On Jayhawks. So our first matchup here is the Battle of the Paint. Connecticut, one of the best teams in the country in two-point offense, one of the best teams in the country in two-point defense. Well, guess what? Kansas is one of the best teams in the country in two-point offense and one of the best teams in the country in two-point defense. So you have two strengths at both ends of the floor going up against each other in this one. That should make it very fun. If either centers to get in foul trouble, that would favor Connecticut because they have two of them. Whereas with Kansas, you're more of with Parker Brown, just trying to fit him in for moments here or there. But Kansas is in the 96th percentile in the country in field goal attempts at the rim per the amount they take. So they are one of the I guess, teams that spam shooting at the rim the most to any team in the country. It makes sense when you look at the personnel and what they do well and everything. But Kansas ranking top 10 in two-point offense and two-point defense by the percentage of shots made. They like to attack inside. They've dominated that in a lot of games. But with UConn being good at both of those, and you get this great center matchup of Donovan Clingan versus Hunter Dickinson. Clingan is a better athlete than Dickinson. Maybe Dickinson has a bit of a strength advantage. Clingan's also a bit taller than Hunter Dickinson is, but they're about in the same range there. But this is also going to be about guard penetration and driving ability. As much as this will be about which center can kind of take over, can one center do some stuff on the block to get easy buckets? Can you space the other center out? Can guards drive to the rim? Can guards get fouled? Can guards hit easy buckets for you on the inside? And part of that that's scary for KU is that if they're not hitting threes, does UConn just pack the paint and make this a whole lot more difficult with a really good center shutting down Hunter Dickinson? That would be kind of a big question coming into this game. So two strengths for both these teams. Whose strength is going to outlast the other? Can one team have an advantage? Will it just be a wash? We'll wait and see. Number 2 on the matchups here is corner threes. So specifically the three-point shooting is interesting. Like I said, UConn is shooting, I think, percentage-wise below what they actually are. Kansas on the season percentage-wise is shooting above what they actually are. But over the last 6 games, or 5 games or whatever, they are not shooting well from three at all. Now, specifically, the corner threes have been the popular one for Kansas. When Hunter Dickinson's getting doubled in the post or DeJuan Harris dribbling through the middle, feeding out to the corner, that's where they've gotten the majority of their threes. KU is actually in the 94th percentile right now in college basketball in corner threes. That's kind of the one spot that they've taken a good amount in terms of the amount that they're taking. They're shooting corner threes at a 38.6% clip. So that's been a good number, but they've been really cold of late. And you look back to their recent games, they've been missing corner threes. So they've got to start hitting some corner threes, especially the open ones that you get against UConn. You have to be able to take advantage of that because it's not going to be as easy inside the paint. Meanwhile, on the defensive end of the floor, teams are shooting 37% from three on corner threes against Kansas. That's compared to just 28% from three against Kansas on above the break threes. So basically, corner threes against Kansas have been a very high percentage. Above the break threes have not been. Is part of that luck? Is part of that just a small sample size? Is part of that KU's given up too many open corner threes versus doing a better job defending with some of the above the break threes. It's also possible. Typically, the corner threes are easier than the above the break threes to begin with, but that'll be something to watch, which team can take advantage more of the corner three-point shooting. Number 3 on our matchups here is, can Kansas force turnovers? The one not strength, so to speak, of UConn. Again, they're actually still good at avoiding turnovers and forcing turnovers from a national perspective. Like, they're above average at it. But compared to how elite they are at like basically every category, they're not an elite team at forcing turnovers or getting the ball taken away from them. And so KU this year has not done a good job at forcing turnovers. But you look at last season, they were one of the better teams at forcing turnovers in the country. And like, you go look at it, this last game, Kansas forced 11 steals. So is that a sign that they're trending in the right direction? But so far right now, Kansas is 275th in the country in turnover rate defensively. Again, you go back to last year, they were 65th in the country, and that was something that they were really good at because DeJuan Harris and Kevin McCullar were getting a couple steals per game each. Now, it is a bit of a different roster, but you still have both those guys back. You should be good at forcing turnovers. You're going to have to get those extra possessions in this game against UConn. By the way, in UConn's 8 losses last season, 4 of those 8 were to top 100 turnover defenses. And in the games where UConn had 21% turnover rate or higher on offense, they were 8-5, which still is, I mean, it's a winning record, but that's compared to 23-3 when they did not. That is a very different record between the two. 8-5 when they have 21% or higher on their turnover rate, 23-3 when they do not. Now, overall, the defense is just going to be about as key as anything, because you look at the 8 losses for UConn last year, 5 of them were in UConn's 6 lowest point per possession games. And one way to lower your point per possession, one way to lower an offensive effectiveness is by forcing turnovers. We'll see if Kansas can heat things up a little bit in this game, more than they have all season long, but kind of in I guess, parallel with what they did, at least in their last game. All right, we're going to finish up with our players to watch, our player matchup to watch here with Locked On Jayhawks. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, our player matchup to watch. Do we want to go with the low-hanging fruit? You know, Hunter Dickinson versus Donovan Clingan / Johnson as the backup center. I mean, that's the easy one, right? Because it's the matchup of 2 National Player of the Year candidates, 2 All-Americans, 2 strengths of both teams, 2 guys that they're going to funnel the ball into. But just to pick something different, because we've talked enough about both of those kind of guys, I want to go with Kevin McCullar versus Cam Spencer. So Kevin McCullar is still coming off an 18-point game last game. He's been off to a really good start so far for KU. And Kevin McCullar is mostly playing the 3 for the Jayhawks. When you look at how Connecticut's playing, at least lately since Stephon Castle's been injured, Tristan Newton's kind of been the point guard. They'll play either Solomon Ball or Hassan Diarra as the 2, and then Cam Spencer will get a lot of his minutes at the 3. He might play some minutes at the 2, but for the most part, he's at the 3. That becomes a very interesting matchup because a lot of what you're going to have to do with Cam Spencer is chasing him off the ball. He is such a good 3-point shooter, and if he gets open off a screen off the ball, it's lights out. It's game over. He's shooting almost 50% from 3-point range. So Kevin McCullar has to be able to chase him around those screens and get out to him defensively. Now, Kevin McCullar is one of the best defenders in the country, but that's kind of a different type of defense you have to play there, as opposed to help defense or as opposed to one-on-one defense if they're trying to take you in ISO. It is a different style. So we'll see how he does with that. At the other end, Cam Spencer is one of the better wing defenders in the Big East and in the country. And can he help take away Kevin McCullar? Now, Kevin does have a bit of a size advantage. Can he take advantage of that in some way, driving to the rim, or in some way getting some extra offensive or defensive rebounds for KU in this matchup? But I think that's one where this thing really hinges. And after Kevin McCullar had a really hot start from three in the first couple exhibition games in the first game of the season, he has gone 4 of 20 from three over the last 6 games. So something we were like, okay, is the three-point shot fixed? Is this going to be a strength for him this season? Hasn't really translated over the last 6 games. Well, in a game where they're a really good 2-point defense and it's going to be harder for you to just dominate inside the paint like you have in other games, you have to hit shots from the outside, going back to the corner threes. I think you need Kevin McCullar to hit a couple threes in this game. So that matchup to me could really determine it, because when you look at teams who come on the road and beat Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse too, you got to hit some threes from the outside and hit some big shots, and Cam Spencer would be the prime candidate to do that. So as much as the Dickinson-Clingan one will be a really fun matchup and kind of strength on strength there, I think the one that maybe determines the matchup the most could very well be that matchup, either that or even DeJuan Harris versus Tristan Newton. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast. We'll be back for a KU Connecticut recap coming up later in the week, and we'll see you next time with Locked On Jayhawks.